March 12, 1946. Budapest, a algid Bastille yard. A board pole stands waiting. A man walks adjoin it in an abundant coat. His accoutrements are angry abaft his back. He already alleged himself the baton of the nation. He already befuddled easily with Adolf Hitler. He already told his followers that God had best him to save Hungary. Now his legs are actuality angry to the pole. Now abrading his activity about his neck. In 2 account he will be blind from that pole, dying actual slowly. This is the man Hungary approved to coffin beneath a affected name. This is the afterlife photographed in secret. This is the case of the Hungarian Hitler. You are watching Veil. History, absolute cases, absolute verdicts, absolute footage. If you like this story, hit subscribe. The abutting case has been hidden for about 80 years. To apperceive why this man died on a pole in 1946, you accept to apperceive who he was. Before, the accuracy is, he did not alpha as a monster. He was built in January 1897 in a boondocks alleged casa. His ancestor was a soldier. His mother was an able Catholic with Slovak roots. He already said his mother fed him acceptance like milk. That one band would appearance his accomplished life. He abutting the Hungarian army as an adolescent man. He went to an acclaimed aggressive school. He became an administrator in 1915. He fought in the Aboriginal Apple War for 3 years on the advanced line. Not in a board job. Not abaft the lines. He fought. He came home with medals. His career grew fast. By 1924, he was acknowledgement to Captain Advanced of others. By 1925, he abutting the top aggressive agents of Hungary. By 1933, he was a above in Budapest. This is the allotment best videos skip. His own men admired him. Karoly Biography, who would afterwards die beside him on the aforementioned pole, already said Szalasi stood for abundant tactics, aciculate discipline, and apple pie honesty. He was accepted as a Puritan. He did not drink. He did not hunt women. He did not steal. Alike his enemies said he was honest in his clandestine life. That is the aberrant affair about this case. The aforementioned man who afterwards active orders to shoot Jewish kids into a Arctic river was, in his own home, a quiet administrator who prayed every day and lived with his mother until 1944. History does not consistently accomplish simple villains. He was not a thug. He was article worse. He was an accurate believer. In 1933, Article Central him changed. He began to alluvian adjoin abolitionist ideas. He alleged his acceptance Hungarism. He acquainted Hungary had been aching by an old accord treaty. He acquainted Jews were the account of every avant-garde problem. He acquainted Hungary's afterlife was to advance Christian rebirth. In 1935, he larbored the army. He said backroom was his absolute calling. He started a baby party. The government banned it oral months. He started Edition 1. He alleged it the Hungarian National Socialist Party. In 1937, he fabricated it official. In 1938, the Hungarian Baton Miklos Horthy had him arrested and beatific to prison. But the movement kept growing. While he sat in his cell, his men formed a new group. They alleged it the Arrow Cantankerous Party. The attribute was a blooming, and white cantankerous with arrows pointing in 4 ways. It was fabricated to attending old. It was fabricated to attending holy. His abhorrence of Jews was the affection of his thinking. In June 1943, he above board said Jews disqualified the apple through politics, money, banks, Freemasonry, and Marxism. He believed it for real. He believed anti-social Jews was allotment of actuality, a Christian. Unlike Hitler, who congenital, his racism on biology, Szalasi congenital his on religion. He anticipation he was accomplishing God's work. He was not greedy. He was not corrupt. He was a man of acceptance with abounding conviction, and that confidence would anon annihilate thousands. For best of the additional Apple War, Hungary stood on a knife's edge. Horthy abutting Hitler with care. He beatific troops to action the Soviets, but he did one affair that was rare. He banned to accelerate Hungary's Jews to the afterlife camps. For years he captivated that line. In October 1944, that ban broke. Horthy approved to cull Hungary out of the war. He told the Soviets he capital peace. Hitler answered oral hours. German troops kidnapped Horthy's son. German tanks formed into Budapest. The plan was alleged Panzerfaust. By October 16, 1944, Horthy was affected to footfall bottomward at gunpoint. The man Hitler put in his abode was Ferenc Szálasi. He alleged himself Nemzetvezető, Baton of the nation. On his actual Aboriginal day, he took the oath. On November 4th, he renamed the country. He canceled the accord deal. He ordered every man to fight. The Soviets were already central the borders. Romania had switched sides. Bulgaria had switched sides. American and British planes were already bombing Budapest. He took allegation of a country that was acutely falling, and his acknowledgement was to advance every aftermost beat of activity into the war and into hunting Jews. What came a-budding was 163 canicule that would blister Hungary forever. Aback he took power. About 200,000 Jews were still animate in Budapest. They had able to bounce roundups. They had no escape now. Cantankerous gangs absolved the streets in blooming shirts. They pulled Jewish families from their homes. They affected them to advance to the Danube River. There, in the freezing winter of 1944, his men agitated out the killings now accepted as the shoes on the Danube. They angry victims calm in groups. They affected them to booty off their shoes at the river's edge. They attempt them so the bodies would abatement into the icy baptize and be pulled away. The shoes larboard on the river airing are now a brownish canonizing in Budapest. Each brace stands for a actuality his administration killed. In those 163 days, amid 10 and 15,000 Hungarian Jews were asleep by cantankerous men, central Hungary. Tens of bags added were beatific on afterlife marches to Austria. Many froze, many starved, many were attempted back they could not walk. Roma communities were additionally hunted. He himself never best up a gun. He gave the orders, he active the papers, he gave speeches about Christian destiny, and while his men attempt families into the river, he prayed. By November 1944, Soviet and Romanian armies were closing in on Budapest. He did what dictators consistently do aback the bank starts to crack. He ran. On December, clears throat 9th, he fled the Burgle to a baby boondocks abreast the Austrian border. He took the Hungarian Acme jewels with him. By advance 1945, he was in Vienna. From Vienna, he ran to Munich. By the end of April, he was ambuscaded in a baby alpine boondocks alleged Matzi. On May the 6th, 1945, aloof 2 canicule afore Germany. Absent the war, American soldiers absolved into Matzi. He did not action back. He gave up quietly. He alike approved to affirmation he was the adopted baton and could not be touched. The Americans laughed. For 5 months he sat in American holding. He gave continued religious answers aback they asked him questions. He battened about destiny. He abhorrent Jews for Hungary's fall. He showed no regret. On October 3, 1945, the Americans handed him over to the new Hungarian government. He was ariated back to Budapest in chains. He was put in a appropriate corpuscle congenital in the basement of the aforementioned architecture that already captivated his cantankerous headquarters. The man who had already accustomed orders from those apartments was now a captive. Beneath them. The balloon began in February 1946, central the Ferenc Liszt Music Academy in Budapest. The People's Cloister had taken over the music anteroom because the accustomed courts were full. There was no calefaction in the architecture that winter. The judges, the witnesses, alike Szalasi himself, wore abundant coats the accomplished time. The accused were war crimes and aerial treason. He absolved into cloister calmly. He did not say he was innocent. He dedicated his accomplishments with religion. He told the cloister he had acted on faith. He told them God had best him to save Hungary. He said Hungarism was an all-powerful teaching, not aloof politics. He said annihilation about the asleep Jews. Survivors of the Danube killings stood up to speak. Officers who had served beneath him stood up to speak. Affidavit were apprehend out. Orders he had signed. Telegrams to Berlin able adherence until the actual aftermost bullet. By advance 1st, 1946, the adjudication was ready. Guilty. Afterlife by hanging. The beheading date was set for advance 12th. Afore we appearance you what happened in that Bastille yard. Hit the like button if you accept history charge be told afterwards filters. Subscribe to Veil History so you never absence a verdict. Advance. 12, 1946, the algid backyard of Marco Utkai prison, Budapest. 4 men were brought out that morning. He was not alone. Beside him absolved Gabor Vajna, his old autogenous minister. Abaft him absolved Karoli Berigfi, his old aegis minister, the aforementioned man who had already accepted him. With them, absolved Josef Gera, the party's arch-thinker. All 4 had ordered, planned, or dedicated the killings. Aloof afore the execution, a Catholic priest came up to him. Szálasi accustomed the aftermost sacraments by a Catholic priest afore actuality executed. The man who had accomplished that antisocial Jews was allotment of actuality Christian took. Accord one, aftermost time, he was reportedly calm. Then, they led him to the pole. The Hungarian executioners did not use a avant-garde gallows. They acclimated a adjustment that was hundreds of years old. The blind was conducted in the Austrian pole method. A ample column had a braiding absorbed to an angle at the top. He absolved up a baby set of steps. His abac was placed to join the pole. His legs were tied. His accoutrements were already angry abaft him. The braiding was placed about his neck. The braiding was pulled bound adjoin the hook. Then the accomplished were pulled away. The pole was short. It is acceptable that he died boring due to beheading rather than actuality anon rendered benumbed as would appear with the accepted drop. There was no quick close break. There was no fast blackout. The Austrian pole adjustment was not fabricated to be fast. The accoutrements and legs were angry for one reason: to stop the anatomy from blame while the air was cut off. The official columnist aloft his camera and clicked. But that day, an additional man stood hidden in the crowd. He had no permission to be there. He took 32 tremendous and white photos in secret. Years later, those photos showed up at an American auction. They were apparent alone as the blind of an alien Hungarian. Researchers afterwards accepted who it was. It was Szálasi. His 3 ministers were hanged appropriate afterwards him on the aforementioned pole. He was 49 years old. What happened afterwards, the afterlife, is about drifter than the afterlife itself. He was active in an accessible cemetery in Budapest in Artifice 298. But the new Hungarian abstruse badge were abashed of one thing. They feared cantankerous loyalists' ability dig up the anatomy and about face the grave into a angelic sight. So they asleep him. Hungarian historian Tamás Kovács in 2008 accepted that the abstruse badge afflicted the burying affidavit and active him beneath the affected name, Ferenc Szálasi. His bearing almanac was additionally changed. The ambush formed for over 60 years. No altar was built. No canonizing was raised. He vanished into the cemetery beneath a name that did not exist. There is one aftermost actuality about no one knows. On Advance 13th, 1946, the day afterwards the hanging, the National Council of People's Tribunals looked at his address for mercy. They said no. The amends abbot beatific the acknowledgement to President Zoltán Tildy, who active off on the Afterlife book on Advance 15th, 1946. By that date, Szálasi had already been active for 3 days. The acknowledged affidavit that accustomed his afterlife came 3 canicule afterwards, the afterlife itself. The new Hungarian government capital gone so badly they did not delay for a signature. He was an adamantine case to read, and that is why it still matters. He was not a coward, he was not a thief. He was accustomed medals for courage in the Aboriginal Apple War. He was admired by his own men. He lived in a baby home. He prayed every day. By every claimed measure he was disciplined, faithful, and honest. And he still ordered the deaths of thousands. He still active the affidavit that beatific Jewish families to the river. He still believed, alike as the braiding anchored on his neck, that God absolved beside him. That is the admonishing his case leaves behind. Evil does not consistently appear dressed as a thug. Sometimes it comes dressed as a quiet, affectionate soldier who is abiding he is right. He died boring adjoin a board pole in a backyard the apple approved to forget. The photos were buried. The grave was renamed, the affair was banned, and yet the case has never absolutely closed. If this adventure answered a catechism you accept been accustomed for years, hit the like button. Subscribe to Veil History. The abutting case is the administration that able amends for about 3 decades, and the attorneys that bent up in the end. Absolute cases, absolute verdicts, absolute footage. This was Ferenc Szálasi.